Welcome to the Fête College Football Podcast. I am Gray Thompson, joined by my esteemed smelly person, Jay Spivey, Vitamin J Spivey.
Hey there, Gray. I'm so glad to get together and talk this week, and we're at Velo Fellow, drinking good beer outside. Man, this is heaven.
This is another really good example of why small business in downtown Greenville is so great. They treat us real well here. We're probably not supposed to be doing what we're doing. And here we are. Nobody really cares. Because guess what?
Cares.
It's all good.
It's all good.
Thank you, Velo Fellow. Thank you very much.
Well, let's just get into it because
yes, please.
The whole Clemson thing of what's transpired since the last podcast.
It's been a busy week.
I mean, Kelly Bryant leaving.
Who?
All of a sudden, Chase Bryce becoming the hero.
Yes.
Trevor Lawrence going out of the game.
Mm-hmm.
Syracuse putting the fear of God into Clemson once again.
My goodness, you're talking a lot.
I mean, there was a whole lot in the soap opera of Clemson football last week.
You said a mouthful and then some. You could write a book over this past week being a Clemson Tiger fan, couldn't you?
Well, what do you think about Kelly Bryant leaving?
Well, let's start there. Kelly Bryant announced, what was it, Tuesday? It was sort of a complicated situation where Dabo said it was a very emotional discussion they had about his future. Said that Trevor was going to be the starter for the Syracuse game at home. Said not to come to practice, you could take the day off. He showed up to team meetings, I believe it was Tuesday, and then just vamped on practice. Just didn't show up. Announced Wednesday in the Greenville News that he was going to transfer and said, I'm not happy about it. What did he say? It felt like a slap in the face.
Yes, and that it wasn't fair. And I thought, holy crap. He just said the two things. And looking back on it, I honestly think that a family member or friend advised him incorrectly.
Mm-hmm.
Because here he is, could have had, now granted hindsight's great, could have been the hero Saturday. Could have actually been beloved by the fans.
He already was. Let's be clear.
But
it's
he
not
could have been more so.
People were upset with him.
No, but, I mean, the cheering at the beginning of the game when Trevor Lawrence came out because Kelly had left was really pronounced. It was loud. So, if Kelly had stayed, there still would have been that applause for Trevor starting the game. But holy cow, Kelly Bryant could have been...
That's a good point.
Clemson's Superman.
Yeah, that would have been a great moment.
Right.
And I hate that it ended up being, what feels like for now at least, a big mistake.
So
for his long-term future, it might work out. If he'd have stayed at Clemson, to me it feels like a better guarantee. Obviously, he was a senior. He still is a senior. He's still technically enrolled at Clemson. He can come back, although none of us expect him to.
No.
Dabo has offered him he's welcomed him back, so to speak, but nobody expects that.
Well, I think that ship has sailed because now the fan base will not be behind Kelly Bryant because he did put them in peril by not being there. And I think even at the end of the game, Dabo, the coach, even addressed it differently when asked.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, he would take him back, but he wasn't like he was a day or two before that. So, even Venables came out and talked about how much he loved Kelly Bryant as a person and all that.
Yeah.
But I think in the end, now that he is gone, they have to move on. And
they moved on right away.
Yeah, so they can't even act like, they would like to have him back.
Mm-hmm.
I think the ship sailed. And Kelly Bryant's going to end up playing for Arkansas State or some school, and he's going to do great. And he's going to be a great addition to one of those teams, but there will be no legacy. There'll be no years put in. There'll be no commitment, no nothing. And it's not like he was going to go play pro football anyway. And it kind of just breaks my heart because this could have been the perfect ending for him, and now it's not.
Well, there's pro football and then there's NFL. Don't forget, we've got two separate leagues. We've got another one coming in. He has opportunities. Blake Sims is getting paid to play football right now. Think about that and tell me Kelly Bryant wouldn't do better.
Yeah.
He has opportunities in front of him, but he also just flushed away a 4-decade opportunity to have fun at every Clemson home game for the rest of his life.
Right.
It's a shame. It's just a shame, especially to see it in college where these are the opportunities where you'd like to see guys learn better about how to handle these situations, how to handle adversity, how to tough it out, and how to be a better teammate because you don't get to do that later. For all the ifs, ands, or buts about whether or not you go pro. You don't get these lessons in the pros. You just don't. It's all about the money. It's about the corporations for sure.
And I feel for him because as a kid, as a young man, here was that one time where Carpe Diem, all the great storybook endings to everything could have happened.
Yeah.
And if you're not in the right place at the right time with the right people behind you, that just doesn't happen.
Cole Stout.
Yep.
He's the opposite side of that coin because he was not celebrated. In fact, he was booed, and I won't get too much into that except he wasn't a great quarterback.
Right.
But their bowl game, Clemson's bowl game against Oklahoma,
he
won it on his back.
He's now kind of part of a legendary,
I got goosebumps right now.
Part of a legendary part of history in the Clemson football program.
Yeah.
Because his best game was the last one that he came at, and he saved the day.
From one game.
Yeah.
One game. And he certainly set it off. It was great.
Well, the Syracuse game itself was nerve-wracking. I mean, as a Clemson fan, I don't know what it is about Clemson's defense, and they've showed it a couple of times this year.
Can I interrupt before we start talking too much about the game? First of all, Clemson versus Syracuse, a noon game on a Saturday. It's still September. Clemson-Syracuse in any decade should not be watchable. It shouldn't be on ABC. This was spectacular at noon.
Yeah, it was a good game.
What a crazy golden age of college football we live in
game.
Right now. It was spectacular from beginning to end. It was
what college football is all about.
Yes, there was a lot of that going on Saturday.
There's a lot of back and forth. But, Clemson's shown themselves twice already of not being prepared from a defensive standpoint in the first half of the game. Now, they've made up for it in the second half. I mean, they kept them under 100 yards. I mean, they were stifling.
Yeah.
And, God, who was it? The Syracuse right tackle who delayed in that one play on backing up. And damn, Xavier popped around him and just nailed the quarterback. And I thought, holy cow, that kid needs to play more. I mean, he is something else.
He's young, too. This is a young team. Now you have two freshman quarterbacks who look, frankly, Bryce also looks elite, or at least has an elite-level ceiling.
Well, he was throwing it pretty poorly.
Well, let's just slow this game down for a little bit.
Until it got to the point where he was either more comfortable or he was picking the routes to throw to, and the receivers like Renfro to throw to that were – all he had to do was get it around him.
See, I don't even think he was throwing poorly. I thought he was making excellent decisions. Let's slow down a little bit. Trevor Lawrence owned the first half. He was the starter. It was an important moment, and he looked pretty good.
Pretty good?
Syracuse had, I was about to say they didn't have any in the first half. They had 0 passing touchdowns in the whole game. Did you know this?
Yeah.
You did? I'm impressed. Did you write that down?
No, I didn't have to.
I thought Clemson's defense looked great against the Syracuse offense that took advantage of opportunities. I saw a guy turn around to see what the coverage was behind him, and as soon as he did that, the ball was in the air, and they missed it. Huge play for Syracuse. What I saw in this game, let me put it to you this way. First of all, I was shooting photography for a wedding all day Saturday. I did not get to watch this game, which is probably for the best. A bunch of Clemson fans were there. If we had a TV, we wouldn't have been doing what we needed to do. So what happened was I heard Clemson survives at home.
Right.
And I saw the score, and I think, oh, my gosh. It was a one-score win at home. I didn't see that Trevor Lawrence got knocked out, so I saw that and said, well, I guess that explains it. It doesn't.
No.
All these little highlights that you see on SportsCenter don't explain the game, so I got to watch the game. What I saw, hey, like it or not, Jay, I firmly believe Clemson is a top 4 team.
Yeah.
What I saw was them missing coachable moments again. Small mistakes with huge opportunities, and Syracuse capitalized on many of them. Several of them were for big plays.
Yep.
What I see is a team that's capable of being elite, of being in not just in the playoff, but capable of winning it with all these freshmen, without depth in the secondary, without Mitch Fields, because he got suspended this week. Obviously, he's a backup in the secondary, but Clemson's depth in the secondary is a real concern. I thought they did a really good job.
They were just very vulnerable. It seems like it's that fine line, and Clemson has yet to play a complete football game.
It's exactly where I'm at. That's true.
I'm hoping that when they get to Wake Forest, they're going to play a complete football game. But there are 3 things that happened in the second half, 4 things that were just incredible. The defense showed up, shut down Syracuse.
Mm-hmm.
The offensive line did the best run blocking they've done so far this season.
And they've been consistently good at run blocking.
Right.
They had to adjust for Bryce, too. So they had some problems on their own that the quarterback gets blamed for a sack. But
it was nice to see
tough.
with a less complicated offensive plan, and they had to run the ball, that they could do that. Because it wasn't that Syracuse's defense was a horrible defense coming into the game.
I didn't say that.
But ETN... Holy cow.
ETNT.
Feaster did great.
Choice did great.
Choice did great.
But I also want to stress that was a big factor with the offensive line opening up those gaps. Alabama wasn't able to do that at home against Lafayette.
Yeah,
not the same way, not through the middle of the pack.
It's been a very, very long time since Clemson had to run the ball and did execute and run the ball exceedingly well.
Yeah.
And
I love that style of play.
It was like, holy cow, they're going to drive all the way down the field. And one incredible pass saved their life. And they did exactly. And ETN was unbelievable.
Which pass saved their life?
The one pass that Renfro caught.
Oh, Renfro, imagine that.
When it was 4th and who knows what. And the ball really wasn't that close to him. And his body went one way and his hands went the other, and he caught it. And I thought, holy cow, that just saved them. Not much unlike Taj throwing the nuke long time ago, in a big game, and
never.
And sometimes somehow you thought about it and you go, how do they do that?
Hunter Renfro stands alone. That guy's a superhero.
He is the hands.
Yeah.
But now they got Wake Forest coming up. Wake's got a good defense, but other than it being a boring place to play with nobody watching and nobody yelling. That's just the hard thing for Clemson, is to stay up for Wake Forest.
It's not Wake Forest. It's Weak Forest, okay?
Yeah.
They don't really show up very well to their home games. I'm not trying to slam them, but they leave me no choice.
Well,
in all sincerity about Clemson, I feel like they are a complete football team who has not played a complete game yet.
That's the truth.
They were dropping kicks, dropping punts, including for turnovers. Clemson had the ability to control this game and bury Syracuse, who is a good... I compare Syracuse... I'm hearing a lot of comparisons between Clemson and LSU today. I compare Syracuse more closely to Clemson. To Syracuse. I compare Clemson more closely to Ohio State, who didn't play... In fact, I would argue they played their worst game at Penn State so far this season and still came out with the W. Clemson's potential has not been reached, and we're still doing it with freshmen.
Let's hope that they start reaching it, because they've got to have a few games of playing well, or else when they get later into the schedule, they're really going to start to struggle. Now, it's funny switching off of Clemson. Alabama, Arkansas, I didn't foresee.
Arkansas, that's next week.
That's right.
So so fast today, Jay.
I'm
not a woman.
That's not a big game, and I feel like Alabama has played. It's not that Alabama's schedule is so easy; it's the teams they're playing are not good.
It's worse than you think.
And they didn't cover the spread.
I know, but that's only because of me. Alabama covered the spread, but they also saw that I picked them to beat the spread. So Jalen Hurts throws a dart to Judge Jerry Jeudy, who never drops a pass, except this time.
Because I picked them to cover the spread.
So Alabama goes to kick a 10-yard field goal and misses.
Yeah.
Next thing you know, Jalen Hurts drives the ball down the football field. He looked incredible.
They did.
Throws it to Hale Henches, who I thought caught the ball, and then he just decided not to because he saw my picks. So it's a 20-yard field goal. Hits the upright. Oh, let's just make a point not to cover the spread. Alabama looks incredible and yet still isn't flawless, and they're beating teams. But yes, Louisiana Lafayette, you're right, not great. Arkansas, not great, although they had a relatively surprisingly competitive game this past weekend against Texas A&M.
They were inspired.
Still, it's a different. Now it's going to be at Arkansas, which is different. This game was on the road for them. So I am still surprised, frankly, that Alabama isn't able to run up the middle as effectively and efficiently as they have for the last decade or so, and yet they're still passing at an incredible level. Jalen Hurts, not to gleam over the Kelly Bryant thing leaving, but Jalen Hurts did play. He burned his red shirt. It was strangely unspoken. A lot of quarterbacks left last week. Auburn lost 2 guys, and nobody spoke about it because Kelly Bryant was really that big of a deal. Jalen Hurts is quietly incredibly improved as a passer. They're letting him. They're asking him to throw more, and he's doing a very good job of it.
Yeah, and the receivers.
But nobody's watching.
There was one receiver over the middle that he threw to for like 30, 40 yards.
I think it was Ruggs.
There wasn't a defender within 20 yards of that guy. And Jalen Hurts hit him just right in stride. It was beautiful. And it's something.
Roll Tide.
It's something when the backup is the guy that's won a national championship.
Yeah.
And I think that's where Kelly Bryant, that's where you separate Jalen from Kelly Bryant.
Sort of. Don't forget, Jalen's in a different class. He may still transfer next year. He'll be a senior. That story it's simply not written yet. That's all there is to it. That's all.
Well, I appreciate Jalen Hurts sticking around.
Okay. So
because to me,
let's slow it down.
Let's be a team player.
Right. Let's appreciate what we have while we have it.
What do you think the point spread's going to be on Bama, Arkansas?
24.
I hope they cover the spread.
4 or 5. Yeah, so do I, Jay.
Because I keep expecting Alabama to always cover the spread, and always keep in my mind that Clemson will not.
Yeah, there's something about Clemson's culture, though, that does that.
Yeah.
And maybe it's me because I am so high on that people don't like. Dave Galloway can't stand it. Oh, I was texting you and Dave Saturday, like, look out for the, make sure you park your car on high ground for all the orange juice with pulp that's going to flow through the streets. But that, I tell you what, there was another thing that Clemson did was storming the field after the game that I heard people complain about. Let me tell you something out there, college football fans. If you hate Clemson and that's what you're doing, I get it. That's fine. That's fine. They stormed it a little bit heavily for playing Syracuse at home. I get it, but I love it. I love college football music. I love the band. I love the band, and they don't broadcast the band. If I'm the guy switching the channel to a band at halftime like Ohio State or Clemson, nobody cares. But I don't even get to do that. So when the fans rush the field, let them have fun. When I go to a football game, I stand up almost the whole time if I can help it. I scream, I shout, I don't swear, but it's the most perfect place to release that energy, like a dog that you let run, right? You just got to harness that energy and control it right. Running onto the field with a whole bunch of friends to celebrate a win and an unbeaten streak
That's
at
what
home
you're supposed to do.
In September, the last weekend in September, in the sun.
Welcome to college football.
Yeah, thank you. And do it more. It's fine. I'm going to allow it.
Now, I watched a goodly portion of highlights and read a bunch of stuff about the Missouri-South Carolina, coming up. But South Carolina losing to Kentucky.
Did you see any of that game?
Oh, my God.
Did you see it?
Yeah.
Okay.
And Kentucky looked good.
We had to do that.
South Carolina.
Kentucky loves to eat fried chicken.
Looked decent. But I think Kentucky's for real. And the whole
Stop
idea
it.
Kentucky's the number 2 team in their division of the SEC tells you how bad the SEC world is off its axis.
Is that where you're going with this?
Because you've got Tennessee that's horrible.
They're terrible.
They're
still very improved. We'll
Florida
get to that
trying to come back.
They're improved.
Yet Kentucky is, the second best team in their division.
They've quietly been right on the edge for a few years playing tough ball. South Carolina once again shot themselves in the foot. Look, they held. I don't think Kentucky scored at all in the second half. Isn't that right?
I think so, but
there's something to be said for that for sure. But Bentley seemed to cost South Carolina everything.
Carolina's a better team than what they showed against Kentucky, and Kentucky played kind of a decent game. But yet, wasn't anything, overly wonderful about Kentucky.
No.
South Carolina, to be honest, as a Clemson fan, I want South Carolina to do well, but they did not. They did not meet expectations in this game.
Careful what you wish for.
Yeah, they did not. They did not do well.
I see South Carolina as right on the verge of being very good. Right now, they're good, and they're a quarterback away.
But
Jake Bentley is Notre Dame's Brandon Wimbush.
But I'm telling you,
they put in book, and now they start beating point spreads and beating teams that even the fans don't expect them to beat, like Stanford. But I don't know if that's going to happen. In fact, I don't expect it to happen.
I'm going to tell you, the South Carolina season hangs on the next 2 weeks. because
they need to get Marshall rescheduled, if they want to go to a bowl. It's a problem right now.
If they lose to Missouri or A&M or both, then imagine how Gamecock Nation is going to feel, because they came in feeling pretty cocky about, so to speak, of how they were going to do this year. And I think that there is a 50-50 shot of them losing both those games, because they're not going to be stellar favorites over Missouri by a lot.
Both.
And they're certainly not going to be stellar favorites over A&M.
They probably shouldn't. But I don't think those will be bad football games. I think Missouri simply... Look, Kentucky doesn't have a good quarterback. Wilson is not that guy. He was able to make some plays. I wouldn't put all of it against South Carolina's defense for him making plays. When you've got a guy like Snell behind him, the all-time touchdown leader at Kentucky, he's so much fun to watch. Kentucky, that game, by the way, was weird because those fans were cheering during Kentucky on offense. Like, that's not what you're supposed to do. Keep it down. They're clearly still a basketball school, right? It was so funny.
Well, I feel for South Carolina because now
Kentucky hasn't had fans. They haven't had fans showing up to see this team play football. Mark Stoops has done a great job of keeping Kentucky fundamentally sound for a season like this, where they can have people ready to pay attention to them when they start beating teams, which is what they're doing. But I do not think they're elite. I don't think they're ever going to beat a team like Georgia, Alabama, Clemson. No, it's just, I don't see it. I don't see the depth from head to toe. This, again, this was in Lexington. Let's not forget how much of a difference that made. And Jake Bentley, like I said, he cost them a lot. He threw some balls that were really...
He didn't have a good game.
Jace Bryce, for example, threw one ball that was interception, and he gets penalized for it. He threw 2 interceptions. That's all I saw until I got to watch the film. One guy came off his route. Another guy was trying to force a pick. Yeah. And he pushed the other guy into the ball, basically. I really thought he was spectacular. I also think it might be time to see what South Carolina can do with a different quarterback.
You never know, and it's gut check time for them. And these next 2 games are it. And you're going to determine. Tough. We're going to determine the season for South Carolina off of the Missouri and A&M games.
I don't know what to think.
We'll either know that they've gotten better and they're playing to their potential, because potentially they should win those games. But I am 50-50 on both of them. And if Missouri's quarterback has a great day, and if A&M plays solid football, South Carolina's going to struggle to beat either one of them. And the only respite they have coming up is Tennessee, who's the floor mat of the ACC, SEC. So
the SEC, we still have to keep them in the SEC.
I mean,
they didn't look terrible against Georgia in Athens, by the way. They looked bad, but Georgia, I think, makes everybody look bad. Tennessee, I stand by what I said in Week 0. They are the most improved team in the SEC.
Well, Georgia, I mean, Georgia took care of things.
Yeah.
And
Tennessee didn't score until very late. It was sort of a slow developing game.
It's like Georgia didn't play a very orchestrated, solid football game.
It looked like they were, I don't want to say they were afraid of Tennessee, but they were playing conservative, it seemed like.
It just seemed unsure.
It seemed like they were willing to let it go into 4 quarters and just crock-pot Tennessee until they were, nice and tender.
Because Georgia's so much better of a football team than Tennessee is.
I still think Georgia's in the top 4. I think they're elite.
I do too. And then, with Georgia's got Vandy coming up, so I don't see that as being anything close to being a close game, other than maybe for a quarter or 2.
Okay.
It would take Georgia shooting themselves in the foot with 3 interceptions and 2 fumbles, and I think even still they'll beat Vandy.
We just saw a freak injury happen to Clemson at home at the worst possible time. It can happen.
The best thing they can do is just have a safe victory against Vandy, so that when they play LSU after that, because that's really going to be their gut check game so far this season.
I believe that's at Georgia. LSU has a ridiculously tough schedule.
It's at LSU.
Is that right? Okay.
Yeah.
So LSU gets Alabama and Georgia at home.
Yeah.
Okay.
So LSU,
both of those will be night games.
LSU may get lucky, play well, but and the other game that I'd really, other than the score and kind of reading some of the stuff I don't know that much about, but Furman did win against Western Carolina.
You didn't see any of this then?
No.
They came out strong. not passing the ball, running the ball to a bunch of different guys. I say not passing the ball. They spread the ball all over the field. Their tempo was really good. I think they scored 28 in the first half, if I remember right. This is what we're used to seeing from Furman over the last couple of years.
So Furman played a great game then.
They played a great game against another high-tempo offense team, the Catamounts, and walked away with a win in the fourth quarter. The Catamounts sort of made a comeback late, but Furman won by 2 scores. So
they've got
F you all the time, baby. Let's go.
They got a big travel game to Wofford this weekend. So be interesting to see if they can how they do against the Methodist Terriers over in Spartanburg. Now Clemson slipped to 4th
in the AP. Is that right? Okay.
So people don't have faith in them.
So can you tell? I assume it's Alabama.
Yeah.
Second is Georgia, and third Ohio State, and then Clemson.
Yes, and
who's fifth? Notre Dame.
Oh God, I had to pull it up. I don't know off the top of my head.
Listen. But if you're listening to sports radio nationwide, if you're watching Sports Center and all these things with people trying to prognosticate what's going to happen, keep in mind we've never had an undefeated playoff winner, and the teams that we're all talking about right now are all undefeated. It's going to play out. We're going to figure it out.
Somebody's going to lose some games.
Yeah, Notre Dame being undefeated, it's fun to talk about now with, what happens if we have 6 undefeated teams, including Notre Dame? Like, that'll be fun, but it's never happened. We'll see.
Let's run through some of the big games coming up this week because, granted, I never saw this coming. Number 19, Texas against Oklahoma. I think Oklahoma's going to crush Texas and just break.
How did I forget? Oklahoma's got to be ranked up there, too. How did I forget about them?
And they're going to just crush Texas.
Yeah.
What is that, the Red River Showdown or whatever it is?
You have to say it real fast.
Red River Showdown.
Red River.
So Oklahoma's going to stay where they are, and they're going to manhandle Texas, I got a feeling.
Yes, you're right. And I'm going to pick against the spread anyway.
Florida and LSU.
And ruin Texas. I'm sorry.
Florida and LSU. Mm-hmm. LSU is going to handle Florida, so Florida's going to go out of being ranked.
Did you see any of that game? Florida beats Mississippi State. Right. Dan Mullen gets his first win at home.
Yeah.
It was a very slow game. It wasn't a pretty game. It wasn't a pretty win, but Dan Mullen gets drenched in Gatorade, and the poetic justice of beating Mississippi State at home is sort of laid out for the first and last time.
Well,
they did not look spectacular. Right. Mississippi State didn't look spectacular either. This was just
what's
brutal.
happened to them because they're great quarterback.
I wouldn't say. Well, Fitzgerald is a more physical runner. He's a capable passer, but the truth is Florida has a very, very fast secondary that was sort of like what we saw with Kentucky that was able to capitalize on Jake Bentley throwing up these air balls. They got to him. They got the turnovers, and that's what I saw.
Probably the biggest game.
They also got to Fitzgerald a lot. They were able to penetrate the O-line in a way that is always going to be trouble no matter who you're playing.
The biggest game kind of in the Midwest, whatever, is going to be Notre Dame and Virginia Tech.
Okay. Can we talk about Notre Dame Stanford?
And we can, but
let's not
spend a lot of time on it.
I won't. But nobody, from what I understand, people weren't picking that very much. Ian Book is.
They handled Stanford.
Well, they started Ian Book the week before on the road, and I wouldn't say they embarrassed Stanford. Bryce Love left the game again late with another injury, but it wasn't. That was kind of incidental. Notre Dame had the game put away by then. Bryce Love wasn't really doing that much. Ian Book is the difference. Ian Book is important.
Yeah, he's good.
He's good, not great, but he is much better than Brandon Wimbush.
He's better in that offense. He's better under their scheme.
Yeah.
And they looked productive. You knew after a couple of series they're going to score a good bit of points, and Stanford's not going to win this game.
And he's tough. Yeah. And they have a complete defense. I'm impressed with Notre Dame, but here we are. They're undefeated. It's kind of downhill from here. Yeah, Virginia Tech, Blacksburg at night on Saturday.
That is to me still the scariest place to go visit and play.
It's impossible to ignore
because I feel like you're going to get cut if you go to Virginia Tech at night.
They lost their quarterback. He's still out, obviously, for the rest of the season, but you still have to play Virginia Tech's defense, and that's just plain not fun. Notre Dame sure does travel a lot. Those guys put up those miles. They should need to get Jennifer Garner in there to do a commercial for them. But
I'm pulling for Virginia Tech because I'm not a big Notre Dame fan.
You pulling for the Hokie Birds?
Yes.
Aww.
Over Notre Dame, yeah. Over the golden domed squad.
Poor Jay.
Rudy
so you're going to have a loss.
Rudy's a good movie, but it doesn't mean that I like Notre Dame.
So this is my opportunity to jump you in the Ion Greenville Pick'em contest.
Well, speaking of the Pick'em contest.
I wasn't speaking of that.
IonGreenville.net is doing a weekly Pick'em contest for college football. There are 257 people in it. Gray Thompson is number 32 out of 257, which is really pretty good.
I'm in the bracket.
That puts you in the top 15%, 20% of the group.
Something good must have happened this weekend.
You're 59 and 48.
Okay. Ugh.
But Jay Spivey is number 7 out of 257 people, and I am 65 and 42. I am 3 games out of first place.
Oh no!
And trust me, I am not the pick'em guy, so I am in shock.
Do you know who's in number 6?
Not us.
It's a monkey at the Greenville Zoo, and they let him fill in his picks with his own poo. Yeah, it's true.
That's the new red panda.
That's 2018 college football through week 5. I'm telling you.
You kind of bring it to a close. The other team that's really hot this year, that I think is going to be that outside shot, that team that may or may not just ruin everything for all the other big schools, is West Virginia.
Yeah, I saw that. I think they're ranked in number 5, depending on where you're looking.
Well, they're up in there, but it just seems like week after week that they handle people with aplomb.
Great. Guess what? They have to play Oklahoma, and they'll probably play them twice because it's the Big 12, and that's the way their championship game goes.
Right.
That second game is what matters most, clearly. But will it be enough? If there's enough undefeated teams. Man, I tell you what, Jay, it looks like it's going to be another exciting second half to the season.
Yeah, and the only other team that it's a big game for them, it may not necessarily nationwide be a big game, but just to be able to say number 13, Kentucky, is at Texas A&M.
Yeah.
If Kentucky figures out a way to win that game, they're real, because A&M's a tough squad.
I think so. I think A&M is more competitive from top to bottom. I'm picking A&M in that game.
I think whatever the spread's going to be, it's going to be next to nothing.
I think it's going to be probably around 10.
I don't know.
Well,
but if A&M plays a good game and Kentucky still wins, then Kentucky's for real. If Kentucky does, I fully expect Kentucky to lose this game.
Here we are, Jay. We live in a world where we talk about Syracuse, Kentucky, and TCU.
Oh, I know.
In football.
I know.
It's great.
I know.
Minus Tennessee.
Well, I really do appreciate you doing the college football podcast with me.
Always.
Appreciate Velo Fellow for letting us come here and drink. I've got Pilsner or Kel that I need to come get one more, I think.
I appreciate Jace Bryce. Is it Jace or Chase?
Chase.
I thought so.
Chase Manhattan Bryce.
For the backup to the backup, that's a secret weapon that nobody. I thought from what I saw, that kid is the goods. And if Trevor Lawrence never wakes up, you're still okay.
Well, thank goodness Trevor Lawrence they're considering it a neck injury and not a head concussion injury.
We should mention that. It sounds like
that sounds
but
like
no broken bones.
Lucky.
They thought it might be his clavicle. It's not. So that's good news.
Yeah, I bet he's sore. Holy cow.
Freak injury too, man. Oh, not just sore, man. When you get hit like that on your head, it takes a few days. You feel it from head to toe.
Well,
you can't sleep.
But one thing you will see against Wake Forest with Clemson you'll see Chase Bryce playing a lot of football. They'll be putting him in there under all kinds of scenarios, and I would not be surprised for a series if they don't have Hunter Renfrow in there at quarterback because they have got to get him reps.
Do you want to make a bet on that? Because after was it Rodgers who threw that pass?
Yeah.
That trick play that did not work out well at all for Clemson. I don't think they're going to do anything like that again.
But they've got to if they get a lead, they have got to know that there is a third guy they can go to.
Okay.
And they've got another quarterback on the roster that
Chase
nobody
Bryce,
knows the name of.
He did a shoulder roll for a first down, summoning the ghost of Taj Boyd. That's not advisable when you're out to quarterback. So
the excitement from a Clemson standpoint against Wake Forest is going to be what series, at what point in the game, if they get the lead, is Hunter Renfrow going in as quarterback?
Okay.
That's right.
He's 13, right?
Yeah.
Imagine that. Number 13, quarterback. Mm-hmm.
Perfect.
We have to at least mention Tua Tagovailoa.
You know, he is the goods.
He's too much.
Too much.
He really was spectacular. He makes these little subtle moves. He just dances out there. So good.
He's perfect.
He's
You know, Hawaii, perfect.
I know. Yeah. You have to write that one down.
Oh no, I had to. When you have to explain a joke, you've already lost them. Well, listen, we'll see you next week. Gray, you want to send us out?
I don't know what else left there is to say. What I do want to leave you with is that I see 6 teams that look like they're competitive for the national championship, and it will play out. In the meantime, let's be clear, Alabama, Clemson, Georgia are 3 of them. Notre Dame might be in there. Oklahoma and Ohio State, certainly. I really didn't think Ohio State played their best game on the road at Penn State. People are making an awful lot about this game. I thought Penn State did play their best game and still didn't win, and I was kind of rooting for Penn State. But
yeah.
What a win. It's a big win. It counts a lot. It's kind of downhill from here for Ohio State too, so we'll see what happens the rest of the season. Jay, we may end up having undefeated teams, but I'll believe it when I see it.
Yeah.
I'll believe it when I see it, and especially with the Big 12. Somebody's got to lose.
Somebody's got to lose.
Somebody's got to lose.
Go Tigers.
Roll Tide.
Bye.
See y'all.